Hi, I'm Sara Dean. There's nothing quite like an old friend, and last week I got to sit down with my old friend, James Monroe Iglehart, best known for his Tony Award winning performance as the Genie in Aladdin. And we talked about his journey to New York, how he's keeping creative and active during the pandemic pause, and his upcoming projects. I hope you enjoy this behind the curtain peek at a life of a Broadway star. Enjoy. So,
Hello.
hello, how are you?
Very well. How you doing, girl? What's happening?
Oh, well, we're going through things, right? Is kind of
Yes,
what
yes. That's a good way to put it. We are definitely going through things. Yes,
we're
that's a good
going
way to
through
put it.
things. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is a thrill. It is a
My
pleasure.
pleasure.
You
Please, of
do
course.
nothing but make me smile
Uh,
joyously and fill the whole life with bubbles. So I'm super
Thank
glad that
you.
you're here. Just a little background for those of you that don't know, James or I, we've actually known each other for a mere 20 years.
When you put it, you know what? It always cracks me up when I realize I'm old enough to say I now know people for 20 years that are not my cousins. So yeah, it is really really cool to, and it's been a wonderful 20 years, and it's flown by, Sarah. It's flown by. It's like I can literally remember me walking into AMT and seeing you at the front, like, oh, what's up, Sarah? And I'm like, oh my God, that was 20 years ago.
I
That's
know.
crazy. But yes,
I know.
it's true.
The biggest thing that I could say is that there's a little bit more gray here and a little bit more gray on me right there.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think that's it's funny. I look back at pictures and I'm like, oh wow, all my hair was black. That's really cool.
right.
I remember when that. I can't even do that if I wanted to now. I have to go get outside help for that.
I know. Yeah, I'm resisting, but I can tell you the past couple months has been I have added
Oh
two
yes.
things. It's like
Oh, trust me. Yeah. When the pandemic started, I was a little bit darker, but now I'm like, nope, just let it go. Just let it
and
go.
we're, you know
Uh,
what? There's many of us out here that are just going to embrace that and say, okay,
just
so
go with it.
just go with
Go
it.
with it.
Enjoy it. It's distinguished by all means.
Yes, we look great.
Thanks. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to start off with just a couple real quick questions. So it's kind of like
Cool.
fire off what
Love
comes to
it.
mind. So I'm going to do the last TV show you got sucked into.
The last TV show I got sucked, Mandalorian.
Yeah,
Mandalorian was the one. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and that one just got me, and I am just loved it so much. It's wonderful.
yeah. I will. Yes, that we are watching that in this household as well. We had a question. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Ooh, that's crazy. I have a lot, but I probably Velociraptor, just because it's just they're so quick, and there's at least the Velociraptor that we think we know. History is now changing. There are more birds now, but the classic Velociraptor, the short version, long armed, really quick, travels in packs. That one, yes.
I love it. I love it. I will watch out for you in a Velociraptor role. Um, and if considering the current state of theater, there is no limits to this question. So there is no race, there is no gender, there is no limitations. Dream role, what would it be if you could play any role in any musical theater production?
Oh gosh, that's hard. But as of right now, at this moment in time, and it has been for the past couple months, probably Phantom and Phantom of the Opera.
Oh,
And it's a toss up with Phantom and Harold Hill. But I've loved Harold Hill since I was a kid, and Phantom I've secretly loved. I never really told anybody until around like this year, right before the pandemic started, when I was talking to folks about like shows I would want to do if I could. And so Phantom is definitely that's the role I would say.
if I can do anything to make that happen, I will help you with that because that would be.
Please do.
And
Please, I
actually,
love
Harold
that.
Hill too. Either one of them would be great. Would be great. So yay! Life in New York right now or New Jersey, where the
Yes.
the You're so first of all, thank you for staying up so late with us. I'm sure it's
Of
not really late
course.
for you, but we're
Nah, I'm up all the time.
we're glad that you're. You
Thank you.
so pandemic life has put you on pause, and as
Yes,
everybody knows,
Broadway-wise, yes.
Broadway is on hold. Tell us a little bit about your most recent project. Like, what are you doing in this? Now that you can't do the normal, what is the normal? What does your new normal look like?
My new normal for the past couple months has been producing and directing the Halloween one night virtual concert of The Nightmare Before Christmas. So I spent doing most of my time doing that, leading all the way up to October 31st Halloween night, for it landing, and raising money for the Lymphoma Research Foundation as well as the Actors Fund. That was my goal, and it went off really well. People seemed to really, really enjoy it. But when I wasn't doing that, I have a couple other jobs. I'm a big comic book fan, as most people know. So I am a host on a podcast called This Week in Marvel, and it comes out every week. And I'm usually on 1 or 2 times a month. And so I do that. And also I have gotten the privilege of living out my other dream besides Broadway, which was being a voice in animation cartoons. So for the past couple of years, I've been Lance Strongbow in Tangled, the animated series that were The Adventures of Rapunzel. But I've also got to be a singing statue in the Disney Junior cartoon Vampirina. And just recently, I was the head villain in the Disney Afternoon. When I was a kid, I used to come home and rush and watch the Disney Afternoon with the Gummy Bears and DuckTales and Darkwing Duck. And Darkwing Duck was my favorite. Excuse me. Excuse me. Darkwing Duck was my favorite. And I got to be the lead villain in the new version of Darkwing Duck, Terrace Bulba. So I'm allergic to my room.
It's adorable. I'm like, you're the cutest sneezer ever. Who knew that?
And so being able to be the lead villain in DuckTales, oh, I was living my life.
Oh, that's.
Excuse me. Doggone, something's wrong with me. I'm losing my mind.
Not a worry. It's one of my favorite kind of stories is, and I meant to look up for this clip too, but I neglected to this afternoon, was doing children's shows. Youth theater is, I think, something that you've talked about, just the connection with Disney, that is a huge important.
Yes.
Big important connecting in with the kids. I have this distinct remembrance of when we lost touch in those dark years, and standing in my kitchen and having my kids watching TV in the other room, and all of a sudden I hear this voice that I cannot. I know that voice, and running into my living room with children watching and freaking out because there is James on the electric company singing about silent
E. Yeah.
And it was one of those pure moments of absolute unbridled. Like, I bet my kids who were young, they were, probably 3 and 5 at that time, remember mom being like, oh my God, so total fangirl for you during silence.
That is still one of the best moments of my entire career. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I get sneeze fit. So once I start, it just keeps going. So I'm going to try. Give me a second. I'm going to blow my nose. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. Just entertain yourself, Sarah. Look at the posters. They're really cool.
Look at the posters. One of the cool things, we will go through the posters a little bit. So I will say that I have seen Memphis and Aladdin and Hamilton with James in New York. Memphis started, for those of you that didn't know, with Theatreworks, with production in Theatreworks, and then built its way up to the New York production. That is a fabulous show. If you haven't seen it, it was one that I didn't know coming in, and was absolutely blown away by just how energetic and the story, the energy that is in that show is just phenomenal. I'm raving, James, about what a joy Memphis was as I'm looking at all your
yes. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
That actually started it all,
Right. Right. So let's.
New York, yes.
We'll just mosey right on over there.
Okay.
With Theatreworks and that production. Tell us a little bit, just kind of what it's like. You've now taken 3 shows and been a part of the original company for 3 shows: Aladdin, Memphis, and
Yes.
I'm counting Hercules, right?
Yes, definitely. Oh yes.
So what is it? Give us a little sense of how what it was like to get Memphis up on in New York, as well as how that differed with Aladdin, with those 2 experiences.
The biggest difference is that at least with Disney, we thought we may go to Broadway. We were hoping we were going to Broadway. There was a hint. With Memphis, we always wished, but we didn't know if it was going to, happen, because there's certain things that people say you need for Broadway. You need the team of writers that everybody knows. You need the director that everybody knows. You need the producers that everybody knows, and you need the stars. You need stars. You need people that people are going to want to come to see. We didn't have none of that. We had a great director in Christopher Ashley who had done a couple things, and he was known. He was known, pretty well. But David Bryan, most people didn't know who David Bryan was, and they would know, but he was the keyboardist for Bon Jovi. So, but nobody knew who his name. They knew John Bon Jovi, but nobody knew David. And also, Joe DiPietro wrote "I Love You, You're Perfect Now Change," but that wasn't off Broadway. So people had done the show, and we had a brand new production team in Junkyard Dog Productions, and the people that were in it, Chad Kimball was the only one who had ever actually done anything, and he was just the cow in the revival of Into the Woods. So we had this brand new cast and this brand new show, and New York kind of looked at us like, "Thank you for coming. It's so sweet you're here. You probably won't be here that long, but hey, thank you for playing." And what ended up happening was, just literally through blood, sweat, and tears, through town after town, from Theatreworks, a 4-year layoff, to go to San Diego, to La Jolla, all the way to the Fifth Avenue in Seattle, to Broadway. And even on Broadway, I remember us doing our preview nights. And we changed the beginning 3 times. We had different scripts every single night. And it wasn't until opening night that it was frozen. We didn't know what we had. And actually, even after we opened, we weren't getting the people that everybody thought, because the big wigs hadn't come in yet. Spider-Man hadn't come in yet. Addams Family hadn't come in yet. Green Day was there. And we were like, oh my God, these juggernauts. And what happened was Spider-Man didn't come in. Addams Family was good. It wasn't as great as I thought. And then once summer left, all the teenagers were gone, and none of the old people were going to see Green Day's show. Don't get me wrong, it was a great show, fabulous show. But all the old people, literally old people, were like, "It's too loud." And they would all come to our show, and they were like, "Oh my God, look at the story and the multiculturalism, blah, 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 blah." And they lost their mind. And we ended up becoming the show that the concierge at the hotels were telling people to go see. And then 2010 came, and lo and behold, we won the Tony for Best Musical in 2010. So, and the difference with Aladdin was Disney hadn't decided whether it was going to go on Broadway yet. Disney was at a really weird crossroads. They had a huge hit with Lion King, and some of their other shows were hits by Broadway standards, but they weren't hits by Disney standards. So Aladdin was kind of like the show that if it didn't work, the landscape of Broadway would be very different right now. And so basically the big wigs at Disney said, "Go try it and we'll see what happens." And they kind of just stood back and waited. And then when they saw what we did in Seattle, in Toronto, they went, "Oh, okay, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, we'll do that." So that's how it. And even in Toronto, I mean, I remember our first preview night of Aladdin was 3 hours long, because everything broke. Every building broke. Yeah, every building broke. Me coming out of the lamp was weird. I distinctly remember my favorite moment was the carpet just stopped in the middle of Whole New World and just turned around for like 15 minutes, and we had to stop the show to get them out of the sky. Everything went wrong. And then opening night, everything went well. So I think the difference between the two was, one, we just were hoping, and one, they were just like, can it work? And if it works, let's hope the audience likes it. And thank God I was in 2 hits back to back. That's nothing but a blessing. So yeah.
That is, I happen to have right here, and you guys bear with me. So this is James's entrance as the Genie. And these are, you guys, about the videos, these are bootlegs that I have found scouring the internet. So the quality is not the best, but at least it is something.
What's yours? Let's see if I still got it. Keep on change, keep on change. Tripping. 2 wings, 1 and 2 and 3. And a big finish for the nice kid in the back row. Don't be so stingy with applause. Give me more.
Right, not a ham at all, at all.
No, not at all. That wasn't my own line at all.
Right. We could tell, milked it just a little bit,
Come on.
Yeah. So Kathy had a question in the chat here too. Can you explain the implications of the impact of Aladdin? How would the landscape of Broadway be different had it not been a hit?
If Aladdin had not gone to Broadway, I don't think we would have Frozen. I don't think we would have Newsies. We wouldn't have had a bunch of other different shows. A lot was riding on whether Disney was still going to be in the Broadway landscape. And the fun part is, it's my opinion, but also the opinion of many others. If Disney is not there, then you don't have SpongeBob. You don't have other different shows that are based on, different, more family-oriented style of shows. And those shows have been humongous hits. But if Aladdin didn't work, those other people would go, oh, that kind of stuff doesn't work. Let's move on to something different. And I don't know what the landscape would look like. But I know Disney Theatrical was for a while thinking of maybe not doing shows anymore. Like, was it needed? Did Broadway need, or did Broadway, did Disney, feel like they still belonged on Broadway? And then when Aladdin came, it was such a departure from the regular style of Disney shows. It was definitely a musical comedy, but it also had Casey Nicola at the head, and that's what Casey does. From The Drowsy Chaperone all the way, to Prom, which is now going to be a huge, Netflix movie. So I mean, it was Casey's vision of what the show should look like and how it should be, and go back to that old style of big, glitzy, bright, big dance number type of Broadway shows, musical comedy. And once it hit, people were like, people still want that. Great, let's go. And all of a sudden, it was amazing. All of a sudden, we got Something's Rotten and a bunch of other shows. It was like, it had that Aladdin-like feel of like these big, giant comedies. And you're like, okay, we can do that. So it was cool.
Yeah, interesting. One of the things, early on, their first, Beauty and the Beast did wonderfully for
yes,
getting them on, but Lion King took it to a new level, and they
a whole new level.
Really embraced that kind of the abstractness that Julie Taymor brought to that show.
Yes,
I think tried to replicate it a little bit with Tarzan, and just kind of they kept missing the mark, and so Aladdin truly did bring it back to that showstopper glitzy number. Well, on that note, let's look at just a show-stopping glitzy number right here. This happens to be the tap section, because we had a question about the tap section. And smile. So, first of all, and smile, because when you're tapping, if you don't have your tap, smile.
Yeah. What's funny is the improv changed as we got to Broadway. I was just making things up, in Toronto. And one day we were we were rehearsing. We found out we got the green light to go to New York, and we were rehearsing in New York. And Casey says, "Just up, boys." And I was like, "Okay, cool. I'm stealing that," because he kept saying it because we were rehearsing. We rehearsed that number for 4 hours straight. 4 hours straight. We're just there, and it was just that part, doing that. And so when we got to it, I felt everybody was tired, so I was gonna make them laugh. So when we got to this part, I was like, "Just up, boys," and we all cracked up laughing, and it just stayed in. I think it's actually in the soundtrack. And then there's a moment where I go, "Here we go," and it was just to pump us up. It was I kept saying things just to pump us up. So when we got to the show, the actual show, I would say those two things stay, but I would deliberately say things to get the cast going and just to keep them hyped, you know. And I was like, if I can be hyped, you guys can be hyped, because I know y'all are way better dancers than me. So it was that moment is still one of my favorite moments on stage. I don't know if I'll ever find another moment where it was that much fun.
Well, it was 8 minutes of pure adrenaline and joy. And at least the night that I saw it, and I think we talked most of the time. The first time I remember having a standing ovation in the middle of a show that I've.
It was just absolutely incredible, and my cast, you know, Adam Jacobs and the rest of the cast, just absolutely phenomenal, and just having so much fun being out there, because we knew we had to do 8 shows every night and had to do 8 minutes every night. So we might as well have a good time with it. So it was great. Someone asked how much improv did I do as Genie? The funny thing, I did a lot of improv in rehearsals. And Disney, okay, here's the thing. With a Broadway show, there's a certain amount of improv you can do if it's not a family show. Like my boy Alex Brightman in Beetlejuice would make up crap every night. But that show is rated R. If you brought your kids, you know, hey, that's your own business. With Disney, we had to be a certain amount, we had to stay a certain place because we didn't want to go beyond the box of what, you know, the Disney company is. So I did a lot of improv in the studio that got put into the script. And then I had 3 distinct places where I got to improv a lot. And that was right after Friend Like Me. That was right when I got freed. And a little bit, if there was any kind of issues with the show, I can like go there. So it was a lot of fun. And so I did have chances. And like if there were celebrities in the audience, I would always mess with people. And if I people I knew, like when Sarah was in the audience, I called Sarah out. If I knew you and I knew you were there, I would definitely give you a shout out or say something to you, and then all the audience would look towards you and wonder who that person was I was talking to. So yeah, I had some fun that way.
So talk to us a little bit about tap dancing, and one of maybe a lesson that you may have learned. Well, anyway, there's desire to hear about the tap dance background.
The fun part is I don't have a tap dance background. I do not. If it wasn't for the wonderful and amazing friend of mine, Robin Trevusi, who's from the Bay Area, who's a great tap dancer and an amazing choreographer, I wouldn't have gotten it. So you may have heard the story before, but I'll make it quick. Casey called me, said, "Can you tap dance?" I said, "No." He called me back the same day. "Can you tap dance?" I said, "No." He called me back a third time. I said, "You have so much rhythm. Can you tap dance?" I said, "Sure, I'll learn." He was like, "Great." Hung up, never called back. So I immediately called up Robin, and I drove to San Mateo like every other day to learn how to tap dance with her for about a good 8 to 9 months to figure out what I was doing. And my first day with her, it was so funny. My first day with her, I had found that I got Aladdin, but I also forgotten that I had an audition for a sideshow in San Diego that was supposed to come to New York. And they called and said, "Why aren't you here?" And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, are you please tell me you're in the area." And I was like, "My agents didn't tell you? I'm not in San Diego." They're like, "James, this is really bad. You know, they think you're coming." I'm like, "I got Aladdin. Nobody told you?" Well, my agents in LA and my agents in New York forgot to talk. So they forgot to tell the other people I wasn't coming for the audition. And I was on my way. Literally, I was at Robin's door of her school to learn how to tap dance when I was arguing with somebody about auditioning for something else. But I learned, I will say this, I don't want to consider myself a tap dancer. I am a good mover. I learned enough tap to be able to do that role. I can learn something now, but if you put a tap piece in front of me, it's at least gonna take me a couple of weeks. Like my friends can pick it up because they're tap dancers. No. I am a mover I am a guy who moves well and I can pick up well. And the great thing is we learned to tap and then found out we didn't have enough time to switch shoes. So Adam and I never got a chance to put tap shoes on. So we're tapping, and yes, we are, trust me, because we wore taps during rehearsals. The only time we didn't wear taps was in the show because we didn't have time to switch shoes. So we were actually tapping. It was cool, but yeah, that's my tap dancing career.
They didn't let you wear the actual taps. That's, man.
Because we couldn't. They kept trying to find ways to slide us off stage, and it just looked weird.
No, they're growing up in San Mateo. So Robin is in my network of youth, and there was a fabulous tap teacher that taught at Dance Arts Center, and now in Redwood City, used to be in Foster City in San Mateo, Burl Davis, and you had to earn.
Oh God, I love Burl.
Right.
Oh God, I love Burl. Oh yeah.
But that is a distinct remembrance of like, you have to earn your taps. And I remember having to, in front of everybody, do the tap routine and being like, God, no. And oh my God, devastating. So that just, it's like you didn't earn your taps, although I'm sure you did.
No, I remember Burl, we were doing my first show, like I tried to do something out of college, was at Broadway by the Bay. At the time it was PCLO, Peninsula Civic Light Opera. And we did Guys and Dolls. And I was Benny South Street, and my boy Atticus Patakin and I were dancing, and we were doing the crap shooters dance. And they were trying to figure out some big thing to do. And there was a signature thing I used to do in the Bay Area, which I stopped doing as I got older. And also, I can still do it. Trust me, I can still do it. I ended it in Memphis. We can talk about that later. But I used to do splits all the time in every freaking show I did. And the first time I ever showed it that I could do it in the Bay Area was in Guys and Dolls. And so we did the Nicholas Brothers thing. So we're doing the crap shooters dancing, and Atticus went in the splits, and I jumped over him into the splits. And that's when Burl was like, oh my God, you have to dance on all my shows. And so I became like one of Burl's people because of that. But Burl is so wonderful. Without Burl and without Robin, here I am.
Yeah, they're instrumental in shaping the peninsula, at least dance.
Oh yes, big time.
100%. So there is one more question that somebody had early on, and I know I've seen a couple other questions, you guys, in the chat, and I promise we will have time at the end too to go back and hit those. Can you give us the secret of the flying carpet? I promise we won't tell anybody. Promise. We're not live on Facebook or anything. We're not putting this up on YouTube, I promise.
Okay, fine. Here's the secret. There you have it. Huh?
Okay.
What? You didn't hear it? I'm sorry. No, I told you. I told you.
James,
I did? Gosh.
Damn.
I'm back. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, we don't have time to repeat that answer, so I'm afraid we're just going to have to move on.
All right. You guys can relive. You got it.
Oh, there you go. Man, I tried. I can't recall who asked that question in our chat, in our Facebook group. I asked when we were backstage. I was like, I need to know the answer. And I was told, no, Disney magic. So, about juggling a couple things. You went pre-COVID and pre-shutdown. You were both performing, correct me if I'm wrong, in Hamilton, and then as well as with Freestyle Love Supreme, kind of.
Yes.
The same, and then Hercules was in there too. Can you
yes.
talk us through how this juggling happens?
Okay, so it happens when your ego is really big and you're not good at scheduling. So what happens is I'm in a show, I have a job, it's Hamilton. But Disney is called and they say, hey, we're going to do this reading of Hercules. Do you want to be a part of it? I said, cool, great. I do 2 different readings and they go, by the way, we're doing the show. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. And then Freestyle of Supreme calls and says, hey, guy, we're going to do an off-Broadway show. Can you do it? I'm like, sure. I don't have to be there every night. I'll just do it that way. And then you end up finding out that some nights, because Freestyle of Supreme is a revolving cast, some guys can't make it and you're close. Can you do it? So you end up doing a 2 o'clock show of Hamilton, then going downtown to do a 6 o'clock show of Freestyle of Supreme, not finishing the last game and running back to Broadway to do the 8 o'clock show. And then you're in the middle of rehearsals for Hercules because you said yes. And so Hercules rehearsals are in the daytime and Hamilton is at night. And Freestyle, you don't really have to rehearse because you've been with it for, 15 years. So you kind of know what you're doing. And then what happens is the people at Hamilton who produce Hamilton also produce Freestyle. So they asked me, hey, we're going to have you take a leave of absence for a hot second. I said, great. So I am able to take a leave of absence to go do Hercules, and that stays with, and then I go builds into freestyle. And then once freestyle opens on Broadway, I'm doing both Hamilton and freestyle. So I do Hamilton during the week, and then on Mondays and Sundays, I would do Freestyle of Supreme. So I would do the 3 o'clock show at Hamilton, race over to free FLS for the 7 and 9 o'clock shows, and then on Monday I would do the 7 and 9 shows, 7 and 10 o'clock shows, and keep going. And so that's how I ended up doing 3 shows in a season. And there was one day where we did Hamilton, Hercules, FLS. So there was one day I got to do all 3 in one day, which was absolutely incredible.
Oh my God.
It's weird.
In case anybody was wondering, James has just a little bit of energy. Like
just a little bit.
Yeah. So along those lines, one of the when you first moved out to New York, fell in somehow with Lin-Manuel and that group, and so it started. And I don't know all of these details because Facebook wasn't a thing back then. I don't think, or
right.
At least I wasn't on it because I was.
It was like really small.
Not important. How did that relationship come around? And then the real question that kind of leads into it: did you actually have to choose between the early Hamiltons and Aladdin at all? Was that ever a possibility?
Funny. Okay, so quick story. It all started actually in the Bay Area. It all started at Marin Theater Company. And Marin Theater Company, Chris Jackson, who everybody knows as George Washington. Chris Jackson and I were both broke as a joke at the same time. His wife was pregnant. Don and I had just got married, and we were doing this show, and we needed this gig. And we were both outside chilling in the parking lot one day, and he looks at me. He was like, "Man, this In the Heights thing really has to work." And I was like, "Yo, man, this Memphis thing really has to work, because if it doesn't, I don't know I don't know. We're literally gonna be working at, I'm gonna go back to working at Blockbuster Video, and they're about to close. So literally, that's how it was." And he brings up, he starts beatboxing, and I start freestyling. He's like, "Oh man, you think you cool, my boy." I go, "I have a friend though who's the dopest freestyler ever." Now my ego is big, and I'm like, "Who's the dopest freestyler ever?" He's like, "Man, it's my man Lin-Manuel. He can rap about anything." I'm like, "I can rap about anything." He's like, "No, you can't." So we start going back and forth, and he goes, "Oh, you need to meet Lin. You got to meet my boys." So all of a sudden, luckily, a blessing happens. I end up getting Spelling Bee, my first Broadway show, but we started in Boston. While we're in Boston, Chris and I have stayed in contact, and we drove from Boston to New York. I auditioned for Freestyle Love Supreme. Lynn's there, Shockwave's there, UTK is there, all the classic guys are there. We get in, and then I started working with them, every now and then when shows aren't happening. When shows are happening, we jump on this train of Freestyle Love Supreme and go. While In the Heights hits really, really big after Off Broadway, and Freestyle of Supreme can't perform as many times because Lynn and Chris are both in the show. So they say, "Okay, look, James, you'll step into Chris's role, and UTK, Utkarsh Umbakar, will step into Lynn's role while they're on Broadway." So while they're there, we're constantly In the Heights things and seeing things, and we're doing Freestyle of Supreme, while of course people know the story. While Lynn is doing In the Heights, he reads the book of Hamilton and goes, "I want to turn this into a mixtape, not a musical, a mixtape." And so I get a call, and he says, "Hey man, we're doing this concert at Lincoln Center, and they asked me to do the American Songbook, but I said, can I do my new show instead? So I wrote this role for you. I want you to play Hercules Mulligan." And I'm like, "Cool. I don't know who that is, but I'll read up on him, and great." So we get there. He's like, "Yo, he's kind of like a Busta Rhymes type of character, and I want you to do this." So we get their rehearsals, and we go to Lincoln Center, and the original cast is like Karen Olivo, Mandy Gonzalez, myself, UTK, John Rua. Chris Jackson has always been George Washington from the beginning. So we all do the big show. Who is there that night at Lincoln Center but Casey Nicola and the folks from Disney? So after the show, Casey comes to me and says, "Hey, you won't believe this, but Disney, I think, is about to greenlight Aladdin, but we have to do a big presentation for the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger. We got to do a 25-minute presentation for him." So I say, yes. 2 weeks later, I get a call from Tommy saying, "Hey, we're going out to the boonies to fix Hamilton." do you want to do it? I said, I can't do it because I'm doing this Aladdin thing to see if it works. I'm in Memphis at the same time. So Memphis at night, doing Aladdin in the morning. We do Aladdin. Aladdin gets the green light. I go to Seattle to do a pilot production. Disney basically said, we want to show it. It may not work. If this works, we'll think about taking it someplace else. We go to Seattle. We do the show. After I come back from Seattle, I have lost a lot of money because I was doing Broadway in Memphis and went to Seattle for no money to do Aladdin because I thought it was a good idea. Come back to New York. When I come back to New York, I get a call from Tommy Kail again saying, hey, we're going to another group of the Boonies to do Hamilton. Do you want to do it? I know you did Aladdin. I said, listen, brother, I love you, but I'm going to try to stay on this Aladdin train and see where it takes me. So I go on the Aladdin train. They all go on the Hamilton train. I'm there. I've been to the rehearsals. I'm there opening night for Hamilton. I love them. They're my peoples. They're my love. Everything is cool. They're doing well. I'm doing well. And then 3 years into into Aladdin, Tommy calls again and says, hey, do you want to come back to the Ham Fam? And I was like, you know what? I've pretty much done everything the Genie can do. It's time to pass the lamp on to someone else. And that's how I ended up in Hamilton.
Right. I'm exhausted already.
So yeah, I was there at the beginning of Hamilton, just being the original Hercules Mulligan. So it was like, there literally was a moment where it was Hercules Mulligan versus the Genie. What are you going to do? Yeah. And I could have done either one, but something in my heart said, go with the Genie, and here we go.
You definitely have had your cake and eaten it too. I mean, it's the.
I've been very blessed and lucky on this front.
James, I mean, what the thing that you bring just to every. Since I've known you, is just this open-heartedness, and despite your incredibly large ego that you keep talking about, it doesn't come out, and you're just humble and appreciative of all of the opportunities and the chances, and that shows in all your willingness to help everybody out and juggle all of the different programs or all the different shows. I mean, life is hard.
Well, the funny thing, I think it helps coming from the Bay Area. It helps coming from a place where, we don't have understudies here. You do the show, and you need to be appreciative of what you have, because there are other people who would love to be in your spot. And in the Bay Area, we used to have a bunch of different theaters. I was there like the heyday. You had ACT, you had Theatreworks, you had Sacramento Music Circus, you had American Musical Theater, you even had the Theater on the Square. You had all these different places to go, and so you just enjoyed being a Bay Area actor. I never felt the need to go to New York, so I appreciated just doing what I was able to do. And when you get to New York, you look up and you realize how blessed you are to do this. I mean, I was blessed to just be a working actor in the Bay. But once you get to New York and you're on Broadway, you're like, this is a gift, because there are tons of brothers who want to push me down the flight of stairs and take the roles I've created or been in. So it's a humbling experience. And you also just want to let people know that it's a job. I love what I do, but it's a gig, and I'm still James. The only thing that's changed is the address. I'm the same dude. When I'm back in California, you'll find me at La Piñata, you'll find me at Round Table Pizza, or you'll find me at Jack in the Box, one of the two. So yeah, that's the one of the three, I should say. That's where you'll find me. So.
As I mentioned earlier, James, I was the company manager for American Musical Theater for years in the early 2000s, 20 years ago.
Right?
One little clip from that, but the one thing that AMT really embodied that I love, and I think, and I see it still in the Bay Area, especially with us at the South Bay Musical Theater, is this sense of community and camaraderie together at its core. Both that was a home to so many performers, and it is kind of my goal to copy some of that feeling of everybody here and share. So I just, this again is you guys, everybody watching, this is an old clip, so do please be forgiving.
From,
wow. AMT's Damn Yankees.
Matt Kaiser.
And Noel.
Escobar.
Yeah.
short stop. Now you get the idea. We got home. We'll sit around and more. Not a solitary zombie we hear. Mr. Cause we got home. Guys, I'm proud of you. We're so happy that we're humming. Hum, hum, hum. That's the right thing to do. Cause we know our ship will come in.
Yours came in.
So it's 10 years overdue.
Hoo, hoo, hoo.
Miles and miles and miles of heart.
Just a second longer.
Oh, it's fine to be a chief horse. But keep that old horse before the cart. So what the heck's the use of crying? Why should we curse?
All right, I could watch that for a lot longer.
Oh,
But
oh my God, yes.
that you know it, and even that song just felt so very perfect of the heart that is brought in to theaters and all of the communities that we create, whether they're small or large, wherever they might be.
I always tell the New York folks, they're like, you know, James, where's the best talent? And I'm always like, ha, the Bay.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you mean? What about New York? I'm like, yeah. I mean, like, look, y'all all flew here. Y'all all took a train here. But of course, you guys are the best. Y'all the cream of the crop of where y'all came from. I'm like, but when it came to being in the Bay, the folks that were singing in the Bay were just amazing. Period. They didn't come from anywhere. They were raised right there. They were there. It was great. And I mean, to be up there with Noel and Matt, and I still talk to Matt, and Noel and I still talk on Facebook or tweet each other or text each other. So those are my boys, and singing with them was so much fun. And that was the show that Diana Schuster decided that it was one of the last shows of AMT, and in the last season of that she was in, you know, around as artistic director, and she wanted to bring all the Bay folks together. So I mean, you had those guys, you had, you know, Joe Duffy, and you had Titus, and you had Anne Marie. You know, it was one of those great moments that we, you know, to have that cast together for that show was fantastic. It was so much fun, and it's such a great show. You know, you forget that's one of those classic Broadway shows. You go, this is just a good show. It's not, you're not trying to teach anybody anything. You're not trying to like beat somebody over the head with a principle. It's just a fun show, and you know, it's great.
It was definitely a fun rabbit hole to wander into.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Rick Iverson, if you YouTube him,
I love you, Rick.
He has a lot of old AMT musicals in full on his YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't hear? I mean, I don't know. It's public. So.
I don't know where it came from, but if you see it, they're there.
There they are. Yay. So I'm going to run through just real quick. There was a question early on, or in our Facebook group, about your Theatreworks, and what was your very first show with Theatreworks? You've had a great relationship with them, including
Yes,
a conversation with Robert. Tell
yes. What's funny is I tried to audition for Theatreworks several times, and I just wasn't good enough. It was so awful. I mean, I have just as many stories about bombing at auditions at Theatreworks as I have actually shows that went well. But the show that finally got me in was Ragtime, and I was a part of the Harlemites. It was one of those great things, and I got to understudy Booker T, and it was that was my first, you know, introduction to Theatreworks, and working with Kelly, and working with Leslie, and working with Vicky, and I just had a great time. And you know, I've done other shows. Barbara Reynolds, I see you. Barbara Reynolds and we got to do oh God, what's the name of that show? She write it down. It was at Christmas time. I'm blanking. And Little Night Music. Yes, Little Night Music. So to do Little Night Music, we sang. The five of us sang together. We all sang. We were at the beginning. We were the singers. So to get to do shows at Theatreworks was a lot of fun, because American Musical Theater was really about humongous shows, because we were at the convention center. It was with a barn. There's a freaking barn. There's a gigantic building. And you can get lost in the building. You can literally get lost. If you weren't careful, you get locked out of somewhere and you're just gone forever. So I'm pretty sure there's still actors locked in there. But to go to Theatreworks, it was more of an intimate situation and more at a stylized form, of the musical. So we ended up doing Into the Woods. We ended up doing Ragtime. We ended up doing one of the show that got me really, really noticed was Bat Boy.
Yeah.
So to do Bat Boy was when the New York people really went, hey, what are you doing? You know, and so to do that show, and then of course Little Night Music, which also went on to San Francisco, and then to come back and just that was to be there at the right time. American Music, this was a moment. American Musical Theater was doing a tour, a 3-city tour of Dreamgirls, and I have always wanted to be James Thunder Early. That was like my dream as a teenager. So I auditioned for it, but you know that wasn't in the cards for me. That was the size I was, the look I was. That's not what that character looked like. But I remember Leslie telling me about this little show called Memphis, and would I please audition? There's a part she thinks I'd be good for. So I auditioned for it, and I got it. And they brought all of the New York folks down, and the only person that wasn't from New York in the cast at Theatreworks was me playing Bobby. And I got to create Bobby my own way in 2004 and got to recreate and keep recreating until we got to Broadway. So I joined that group of people, that J. Bernard Calloway, Derek Baskin, Montego Glover, Chad Kimball group at Theatreworks in 2004. And I remember how when they were taking it to a different city, Derek Baskin tells the story all the time. He and Jay Bernard were out with David Bryan. They were like, man, we're taking Memphis. We need a James Iglehart type. And he said, why don't you just call James? And he's like, you think he would do it? He's like, oh yeah, James is busy, but he'll do it. And he calls me up, knowing I'm not busy. I'm not doing anything. I am sitting on my butt in the bay, waiting for, like, looking for a next gig I'm doing. I think I was teaching or something. And they called, and I ended up auditioning for Christopher Ashley for reading. And again, I was back with the group, and I took Memphis all the way, you know, for 8 years with that bad boy. So it was interesting to be with Theatreworks because it was just the way that they did things, which is a little bit different. You know, if there's a difference, it's like AMT is very glitzy, and Theatreworks was almost like a homey style of theater. But you need both. You need both, because there's certain shows that just need that oomph, and that's what AMT has. You need those shows that just focus in and tell you the story and kind of try to teach you something underlined without you knowing it, and that's what Theatreworks did. And I enjoyed being at both places. I spent my career at both of those theaters. I think I did 6 or 7 shows for both theaters, but with Theatreworks, that's where Memphis started, and that's kind of what went that way.
I do have one memory early on of you pulling me aside and going, Diana Schuster hates me, and I turn to you and I'm going, James, I don't think so. She's cast you in every one of her shows for the past 4 years. Like, you're the only person she's ever done that with that I knew of. So we did have a question.
True, that's true. That's true. I was, you know, when you're young, you say things and you go, huh, okay.
Well, and you know, and at some point you learn to put the insecurities behind you, I'm sure.
Yeah, you just kind of go. What's funny is you don't. It kind of makes you the career kind of forces you to.
Right.
And you kind of go, I can either live in this insecurity and not do anything, or I can move the insecurity aside and say, this is what I really want to do, and just jump out there and take the leap of faith, and then hopefully I land. And so far I've landed on some really cool things, you know.
I'm going to take that advice to heart and kind of keep that. I'm going to maybe put that up on my wall in front of my office. Let the insecurity stop. Because
seriously.
One of the things you kind of mentioned in the past couple a little bit, but it was just a question we had on the chat was, do you audition well? And what are
all depends. Like, yes, sometimes I audition. I mean, I'm still human, so but some audition, like, okay, I had an audition. I literally had a screen test over Zoom for a TV show just 3 or 4 days ago. And it went extremely well. I mean, it was so good. And then my agent called 2 days later and said, that was great, but the network doesn't see you as the character. And I was like, nothing I can do. You know, you can audition well, and it might not be for you. But the one thing I have learned over the years, besides the insecurity thing, is that if the door is supposed to open for you, it will. If it doesn't open for you, there is a specific reason why, and you may never know. Someday you might know. But there's another door for you. And when that door opens, that door is for you, and all the blessings that come with it are for you. Because I've had many doors close and me go, oh, you know, you do the actor thing where you go, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I'm terrible. It's never going to work. Why am I doing this? Or when people go, that was my role. And it's like, actually, no, it wasn't your role. Because if it was your role, you'd be doing it. But then another door opens, like Aladdin. I auditioned for Sister Act. And I was at the last group of Sister Act, and thought I had it, and it didn't. And I thought, God, Alan Menken hates me. A couple months later, you know, here we are.
No.
So we're like, oh,
Oh,
if it's for you, it's for you.
right. What a perfect, yes. That is the be, you know, fearless is more than anything, and accepting of the path that is ahead of you.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. So I'm just going to kind of run through our chat. And you guys, if there's any questions that you have popped up with, you know, please feel free to tap in. I personally don't mind if you guys want to raise your hand and turn on monitors, that's fine, and say something, but do let me know. I am scrolling through here kind of quick. Catherine had a question earlier on, and sorry I missed this, Catherine, but when you were talking about Freestyle Love Machine and doing Hamilton and Hercules at the same time, do you ever say the lines from one show in another show, or does muscle memory just kick in?
Muscle memory kicks in because quick story. I left Aladdin and I was rehearsing for Hamilton, and there was a weekend I got a call, and I was getting calls all day, didn't know why. All the genies were sick. All of them. The lead genie was sick. The other lead genie was on vacation. The other genie was broken. So they called me and said, James, can you please come in and play the genie? So I had to leave the Hamilton rehearsals I was doing and go do the genie for a weekend. And I was like, I haven't done this in 4 weeks. I don't know if I know what I'm doing. I put the costume on, I put the glitter on. The minute I got on stage, all the lines and all the things came back. And when I was watching Aladdin, a piece of it the other day. A friend of mine had some bootleg, whatever. And I was like, all the lines are still there. They're still in here. Same with Hamilton. So it's one of those things. It's like, I never, ever said lines from other shows. I've messed up lines before, yes, but I've never mixed shows before. No.
Yeah. Andy Bates that raised his hand. And Andy, what is your question?
Hi, how you doing? I saw you in the touring company of Spelling Bee, I think, in San Francisco. Yes. I think back in, I can't remember when that was. It's got to be a while ago. 2004?
Oh, yeah. About that. Yeah, 2004, 2005, yeah.
So I had a question. The night before Christmas concert was fantastic. So what was the process of doing that? Because it seems like there's got to be a lot of rights issues, but you guys had an amazing cast, and yeah, it was fantastic.
Basically, the guy who plays Jack, Rafael Cassell, and I have been trying to do a concert of this for years. We just couldn't get the rights because Danny Elfman does his Halloween concert at the Hollywood Bowl and everything's every year. But this year, because it was different, he wasn't doing it. I asked again, and this time they said yes. So I had to go through. I had to wait for Tim Burton's people. I had to wait for Danny Elfman's people. I had to wait for the Disney Music Group to say yes, and I had to wait for Disney Theatrical to say yes. And once we got all that, then it was about. What's funny is I was lucky. I already had my cast. I literally put everything together and then told them, look, here's my cast, here's my crew, this is what I want, just tell me yes. So while they were figuring out whether they wanted to say yes, we just started working. So by the time, we knew if they did say yes, we would already be midway through getting everything together. And if they said no, we would just stop production, it'd be fine. We would just play it for ourselves. But we wanted to keep going. But the cool thing was, they wanted to make sure that we knew it was a virtual concert, and it was a virtual concert of the songs. Those were specific things, because Danny's concert is the whole movie plus him singing. And Disney Theatrical wanted to make sure that we weren't stepping on your toes just in case they feel like doing something. And Tim just didn't want us to mess up his project. But really, it was about raising money for the Lymphoma Research Foundation, because my wife had lymphoma a couple years ago, and I wanted to give back. And also with the Actors Fund, with what's going on with all the actors around the country, I wanted to give back to the people that I love. And so that's how we ended up doing it.
Yeah, well, thank you. It was a fantastic show, and you got reunited with Jenny Barber, who was
that's my girl. Yeah. Oh yes, and also her husband.
I had a question.
Her husband Ron had lymphoma, and he really helped Don out, which was another reason why I asked Jenny, because I wanted her to be a part of it so we could both give back, at least with
I have a question for James.
Thank you.
All right, my friend, I don't have your name up here, but it's iPhone.
That's me? Okay, so James, you had a job before all this happened, and family. So how did you make it to the top, man? I mean, how did you do it, dude? Because I got a family too, and I got kids. So how did you get to the top, man? Tell me how you did it.
To be honest, it was a lucky break. It was like being prepared, I was always prepared. I've always, you know, tried to keep myself ready to do what was ever going to happen. But a lucky break happened with Spelling Bee. My friend Derek Baskin was the lead in Spelling Bee on Broadway. And when they were going to do Spelling Bee in San Francisco, he told them about me. And just because him telling him didn't mean I was going to get the job, but I was prepared for the audition. And because of the audition, I got into Spelling Bee, and that's where I started meeting people, a lot more people in New York. And because of Theatreworks and American Musical Theater, I had met several people from New York, so I had connections to New York. So when I got there, I kind of had a foundation. So that's kind of the way it happened. And then it was just lucky breaks of the show, because once Spelling Bee was over, I came home. Came back to the Bay Area. Memphis happened. Once Memphis happened, I came back home, and then Aladdin happened. So once Aladdin happened, that's when my wife said, "We're not moving back. We're staying in New York because you're getting too many jobs." So that's kind of how it happened. But it was about being prepared and being in the right place at the right time when Spelling Bee hit.
And openness.
And openness, because I could have said no. I was like, "No, I'm not doing that show." And I was like, "No, I'm doing something."
You sure? Anytime you want to come back home, we're waiting for you. We're here.
Trust me, it might happen.
Right, the winter's coming, and it's not winter.
That's right, Barbara. It was right after A Little Night Music. Yes, that's very true.
Maybe 2006. Sharon had a question too, which actually is kind of on ours. Would SBMT consider Memphis? Yes, we would. It's
a great show.
Ongoing list that happens, and it's very long, but yes, that's in there. I think it would be wonderful. No promises, though. I cannot promise anything. Well, who knows what the future holds anyway.
You never know.
Right. Good. Other than that, anybody else out there have any questions? Because otherwise,
I got one more
on Facebook that was mentioning Sweeney Todd from 2005. I don't know, any memories from that? You have a fan?
Oh gosh, I have great memories from that. I've always wanted to play Sweeney. I remember Jay Manley had come to me, and we had done Showboat, and we had done Ragtime, and he said, "I have a question for you. Do you want to do another show?" So I'm thinking Jay wants to do the trifecta of the live-event shows, and he wants to do Parade. And he says, no, I want to do Sweeney Todd. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I'd love to play the Beatles. And he was like, I want to play Sweeney. And I was like, yes, I've always secretly wanted to play it, never thought I would. And to play it at Foothill, which is one of my favorite theaters, and to play it in the Black Box Theater, so we were so close to the audience, it was just a blast. And also, there's anytime you get to be on stage with Diana Torres-Cos is fantastic, and the two of us together, we're such nuts. So the fact that we got to do that together was awesome. And the cool thing is, you know, Barbara keeps popping up. Barbara and I have done a few shows together. You know, we did Ragtime together as well. So I love Barbara. Also, singing with Barbara lets you know how well you can sing, because Barbara's one of the best sopranos in the Bay Area. So to be able to sing on stage with Barbara and be able to hang, I felt pretty good. So Barbara Reynolds, thank you.
I agree.
That's right, Showboat. That's right, we did Showboat. That was good.
Oh, so we've got two more questions. Nancy has tell us about the HGTV show.
Well, that came out of nowhere. Honest to God, true, that came out of nowhere.
We have deep James fans here. Deep James that are gonna.
I am so excited. November 27th. On HGTV, I will be the new host of the Biggest Little Christmas Showdown. It is a four episode series about miniaturists going in competition, and they're building doll houses with a Christmas theme. And trust me, guys, this is amazing. And we got Jane Klinklanks and David Ailes, as well as Genevieve Gorder, who you know from Trading Spaces, as well as Dear Genevieve. So it's going to be a great show. And how I got it, I'll be honest, this is what I mean by being nice in the right time. You never know what it'll do. There's a show on Netflix called Maniac, and I got to be a part of it. It was great with Jonah Hill and Emma Stone. I got to be one of the principals in that show. The standby for Jonah Hill, the stand-in for Jonah Hill, he and I just kicked it and talked all the time. Didn't know his wife was a showrunner for the Food Network and for HGTV. She says, we're looking for a host, someone who's got a lot of personality and big. And who do I think? He goes, you know, it'd be great. You should get James Iglehart.
Oh man.
She called my agent, and we had a great conversation, and that's how it happened. But I did that TV show 2 years ago, and he remembered me being nice to him and told his wife about me. So it really is how you treat people. You could be as big as you can be, but if you don't treat people well, people remember that. So I have to give him much credit, because that came out of nowhere. I didn't audition for that. They thought I'd be good, and I spoke to them and talked to them and got on Zoom like this and just started talking. They were like, we like your personality, let's go for it. And so the show's about to hit. It's about to have a good time. So I hope people really, really enjoy it. It's a fun, wonderful holiday special. And trust me, the teams on this show, the things that they are building are amazing. How they build it. You think the people building real houses is something? The scale, how they can do it is just, I was in awe every day watching these folks, because they're building it there in the studio. Like, it's reality TV in a different way, a good reality TV, because it's like, these are talented people, not folks with no talent just up there like just doing crap. These people know what they're doing. And I was like, this is great. So I hope folks enjoy it when they see it.
Oh, I love it. We will spread the word on that TV show for sure. And
did you get to keep any of the little miniatures?
They did give me a little light that turns on. It's a little lamp, and I got a small Christmas tree that I will put up during Christmas time. It's just there. I have it on my mantle next to the Genie. So once that happens, it's good.
Well, say hi to Dawn. How's she feeling?
She's actually feeling really well. She's doing really, really good. She works every day. She's been working from home since 2009. So this was when the pandemic hit. She was already ahead of the curve and ready. It was her team that had to get on it. My wife is she's always ahead of everybody. It's just a skill set she's got. I don't know how I'm lucky. I don't know. I never know what's going on. So she's good. She's really good.
We had a question from Nicole. What is the most embarrassing costume you've had to wear, or most embarrassing moment on stage?
If that's Nicole, who I think it is, then Nicole knows the answer to that question. Nicole and I did a show at American Musical Theater called Joseph and Technicolor Dreamcoat. And hi, Kalana, how you doing? So Nicole and I, as well as many of our friends, Matt, Kaiser, Joe, Duffy, so many people, and the wonderful costumes designer thought it was okay to put us all in a leotard, the same leotard. Now, Nicole, look at Nicole's daughter. This is a beautiful woman, beautiful lady. And then there's round me, putting us all in the same unitard with Velcro in specific places so that you could change the costume. So let me tell you something. I've never seen a group of people more mad to wear something, but more happy to be together at the same time. And we all walked out there looking at each other. Once we all looked at each other, we were like, oh, here the hell we are. Nothing we can do about it. We might as well just go out there and have a good time. And and Joe Duffy, one of my favorite stories, Joe Duffy, like I said, we had Velcro on. We had little skirts, and his skirt fell off. So he just jazzed hands his way off stage, and we all watched him. Nobody was paying attention to the audience. It was just awful. And then underneath the leotard, we had to wear a white leotard, because you want the underwear. There's an actor, I won't say who. This is probably a terrible story to tell, but I won't say who. But this actor here, we have to change our clothes and get into the white outfit for the remix, because Joseph has to do the whole thing over again. I don't know who wrote that. They need to be slapped, but they have to do the whole thing over again. This actor runs off stage, takes off the first unitard, and is about to use the restroom. He's a guy, so he tries to pull it down. Unfortunately, while he pulls it down, it snaps back up. Think about that for a second. Snaps back up, and things just go everywhere. He takes that off, hands it to a dresser, and goes, I'm so sorry, I peed on this. Then puts his other costume back on and runs on stage. Now, we all know this. So we're all dancing, we're all getting, the head of our time, we're all off stage. And the people always say, James, you've been in so many costumes, the Genie and Hamilton. What's the weirdest and worst costume? The weirdest and worst costume is American Musical Theater, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, because nobody looks good in a full leotard, but just, to this day, I will be 90 years old, hopefully getting my Lifetime Achievement Award from the Tonys, and I will tell this story because that is the worst costume ever.
And a bike helmet.
And we had to wear a bike helmet with Velcro on that.
Yes.
Listen, that was one of those moments. That was one of those moments where I knew that even though it wasn't legal at the time, somebody in American musical theater was smoking weed. Some of us are like, yeah, this is fine. This would be great. This would be great.
Yeah, because the unitard was also anatomically correct. Let's just leave it at that.
Need I say more? Need I say more? That was also the same season as Damn Yankees. That was the last season where all of the main folks who had been at AMT for many, many years, we all got to do these shows together. And it was one of those great camaraderie moments for us to go out like that, to all be together as a family. So even though it was crazy, we were having a ball, just laughing at each other and laughing at the situation. And great. And the one thing is, all the shows were a hit this year. I mean, we were fire that year. We were sold out every single night. So we couldn't complain too much,
I did try to find, again, Joseph is one that was unable to be found, but one of my favorite memories of that is the Canaan Days song. And at some point in there, I mean, it just, your good nature. I remember you being the bench that
yes, and that Joe Duffy sat on. Yes,
I had to sit on.
And that was my idea. I was like, they wanted Joe to sit on the floor. I was like, please don't make that boy sit on the floor. I got this.
You can sit on me. This is very sweet. Yay. Well,
Nicole, you're amazing.
That was quite a. Yes, I don't remember the bike helmets. I must say, I do not remember those bike helmets.
Well, we had bike helmets, we had gauntlets, we had skirts, we had anklets, and a different shirt or skirt, and then the Canaan Days moment, which also, so they all Velcro differently. And then we had the Pharaoh moment. So they had the Pharaoh hats, and that also went on the bike helmets. You had to put the things on. So it was like little halo things went on the bike helmets, and then we put the skirts on, then we did the thing. And we would have to run off, and then Joe and I would run off and do the voice of the snake and the camel. And it was so much. That was also the cool show because Paige O'Hara, the voice of Belle, was the narrator, and one night she got sick. On the last day, she got sick. In the second act, my cousin Adrian Muller had to step in as and her family came to see the show and they didn't know what was going on. So the second act, and she steps out. So it was one of those, there's those theater moments that are just like so magical. That was one of those moments. And, like I say, I've done Broadway for over a decade now. And there's still some moments from the Bay that just are so much more magical than just being out here. Also, I got to see Kalana. I got to see Miss K grow up over here, and I just can't believe it. She's like a grown person.
It's crazy. They do that. It's so.
Everybody's kids are like grown. It's weird.
Not fair. That's minor, 8th grade and junior in high school now. I'm like, no, I'm not happy.
I think Karen was on screen. She had a question, I think. There she is.
She was just chilling. She's just chilling. You're muted.
You're on mute.
Hi, I'm just stupid and don't know how to use Zoom, James. Hey, how's it going, man? That's all.
Go well.
Okay, I have a question. I just thought of one. Maybe somebody already asked this because I got on kind of late. Who have you fangirled over anybody? And like all the people that you're meeting, who have you been the most excited or intimidated or Twitter pated by?
Not intimidated or Twitter pated by, but I see other actors and I'm like, cool, great, another actor, sounds great. But for those that know me, I am a huge comic book fan, professional wrestling fan, and cartoon fan. So when I got to meet, I've become friends, which is so weird. I've become friends with Dave Bautista, the guy who plays Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's also a 4-time WWE heavyweight champion. We've become good friends. I've become friends with a couple of the ladies and guys from the WWE, and we've done shows together. I've done their shows. They've done some of mine. And those are the folks that I really get tripped out about, because that was what I thought I was going to grow into. I thought I was going to go into professional wrestling, not into musical theater. And the fact that I'm here and they love musical theater as much as I love wrestling is the weirdest thing. And then I got to meet Peter David. He's the guy. If people have watched, I'm a big, like I said, comic book fan. If people watch the Avengers or the Avengers Infinity War, the way the Hulk looks, you know, with the glasses and the talking and being intelligent, there's a guy named Peter David. He created that Hulk in the 80s, and have become friends with him. He helped me. He taught me a lot about writing comics. When I wrote my 3 comic stories for Marvel, he helped me write it. And also the guy Dan Slott. There's the Into the Spider-Verse cartoon. He's the creator of the Spider-Verse. Like, he created the Spider-Verse, and he's also the one that killed off Peter Parker and brought him back. And to be able to meet him at Hamilton and then talk to him and chill, and him going, "Hey, you can write," I would like, yeah, I thank you. So it was those guys that like I tripped out. But the one person, there is one actor, one performer that I did completely like lose it on, but it was a moment of respect because she was such a hero of mine. I met Whoopi Goldberg, and I met Whoopi Goldberg at Aladdin, and I walked off stage and I was about to hug her, and she literally bows down before me, and I lost it. I mean, tears. She asked me why I was crying, and I said, "You don't understand." I said, "In college, you did a one-woman show, and it's one of my favorite things ever, and I got to play one of your characters for a one act in college, and I have studied all your work. I've seen all your movies and just the way you handle yourself and how you are." And she has been the coolest, most wonderful person to me, you know, during this whole thing. Whenever I go to The View, she's the one that, you know, says how to say she never says my name right, but she is, when it comes to the when it comes to the respect on my name, of how the producers treat me and how some folks at Disney were treating me, Whoopi stepped in and said, "Hey, no, this is this guy, and he got this, and he's this, and this is why he's important." And she didn't have to do that. She did not have to be like that. So that person, and also one person who's one of the sweetest ladies I've ever met in my entire life, one of the most humble, talented people ever, is Sarah Michelle Gellar.
That's so rad.
Like the coolest person. Yeah, and so her love of Broadway, her love of theater, her love of acting, and just her love of people is really, really cool. So we became friends. So the folks that I fangirled off of, I ended up becoming like really cool friends with. So it kind of didn't really get to like fan instead of it got to fan. Oh, we're going to have dinner type thing. So it was like,
see, that's how I feel about you. I even wrote you a rap one time. You remember that?
Remember that? I do. I remember that. I do remember that.
Good times. One last real quick thing. Just, have you mentioned anything about how you've like actually written a Spider-Man comic? Like, has that come up in just, you know, all the free time that you have?
No, but I've written 2 Spider-Man comics and one sheet of Rocket and Groot. So the fact that I still work for Marvel, you know, and on there, I'm working for them tomorrow. We do the podcast. I've got some other ideas. I've just been really, really busy, but now with the pandemic, hopefully I can, you know, get some more writing in, and we'll see what happens. But it was Dan Slott. He's the reason why I got to actually write the Spider-Man comic, because he stepped in and said, "Hey, you should let this guy check out some stuff." So,
well, as you know, my daughter is like as much one Christmas. You and my daughter both got all the same things for Christmas. We talked.
I remember that. I remember.
She loves you, and I got, you know, all the signed stuff for her. For last time I saw you, got all your comics that we could find. So anyway, bless you, man. It's so good to see you, James. Love you.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right. So we had a couple of people post on Facebook that I just wanted to read for you. And then we've got one last question, and then we'll wrap things up. So this is from Annette Stenger. "Hey, James, you probably don't remember me, but I was in the ensemble of Ragtime and Sweeney Todd at Foothill Music Theatre. And we're standing in the sides.
I do remember.
Before an entrance during Ragtime, and I whispered to your ear, we're going to see you on Broadway someday. Well, just wanted to say I told you so. I'm so proud of you, and honored that I got to be a present in your journey. Keep shining."
Thank you, Annette. And I do remember you. Trust me, I remember being back there, especially with those 2 shows, because we were such in close proximity, especially at Sweeney.
There's many small stages back here. And then Anthony Jackson has written. Anthony was just recently played our Jim in Big River, and afterwards, I pulled him aside and was like, he has the same spirit as that I see in you, and that beautiful voice. So I appreciate you and your story and origins. I always feel honored to be compared to you. Nowhere near as talented, and you're truly an inspiration.
Well, man, Anthony, listen, it's not about being talented it's being talented as yourself. And this is not the first time I have heard about your name. So obviously you are doing some great things because people keep talking about you. And if people are talking about you, if more than three, I always say this, people say, how do you know if I'm good? I'm like, well, if one person says you're good, yeah, you might be good. If two people say you're good, you might be good. If three people say you're good, you might have some skills. So I've heard more than a couple of people talk about you, my man. So keep doing what you're doing and enjoy what you're doing. Trust me, it's fun.
He spreads love and joy like you wouldn't believe. So thank you, Anthony. And then Sharon has one just final comment. Do you feel like you made the right choice in joining the original cast of Aladdin instead of the original cast of Hamilton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Don't get me wrong. I love Hamilton, and I know the world loves Hamilton. That is the world's show. But when I am a Disney kid to my soul, and I have been since the first day I went to the drive-in in Union City, California to see The Jungle Book. I have been infatuated, and I understand that people talk about the history of Disney and this and that and blah, blah. And everybody, if you go into anybody's history, you're going to find some dark things. But as far as the amount of content that they put out that is trying to just make people smile and people happy, it has always been a happy place for me. And when I was 17, I was a teenager just going through life as teenagers do. And I just needed something. I needed something and I didn't know what it was. And I was 17 and my mom took me to see Aladdin. And one of my Mount Rushmore comedians, Robin Williams, was up there. And I got to see a comedian, which I love stand-up comedy, mixed with musical theater, which I love, mixed with Disney, which I love. And I leaned over to my mom and I told the story before and I said, I want to do something like that. Not realizing that years later, I would be doing that song, my version, with me recreating the role in my version that I loved when I was a kid. And it was such a daunting thing. I was so scared to do it. I thought people were going to hate me. I thought people were going to hate the show because it wasn't the cartoon. And I remember Jonathan Freeman walking over to me. Jonathan Freeman is the voice of Jafar, the real Jafar, and also in our show. He said, you know, Howard Ashman and Alan Menken wanted the character to be like this. You know, they wanted him to be like a Fats Waller type of Cab Calloway person. They wanted him to be African American. They were looking for a guy like you. And when I heard that, it gave me the freedom to create the role I wanted. And then Howard Ashman's sister said, you know, this is how Howard wanted the show. So Hamilton is great. Hamilton is gravy on a career that I could only have, if you would ask college me what kind of career, if he was a fan of James Iglehart, he would lose his mind and look at James Iglehart the same way I look at Brian Stokes Mitchell and Norm Lewis and Chuck Cooper. Those are the guys I looked up to, Ted Ross. So the fact that I got to do that and got to do it for 6 years and build the character and like literally go through the crust of the badness of trying to create a show and coming out great on the other side, or at least I should say great, that sounds conceited, but coming out with a hit on the other side after all that work, it was definitely worth it. And I knew it was time for me to move on. It was time for me to let somebody else take the reins and recreate the character their way. And then they did the same thing. And then I was like, where will I go? And Hamilton allowed me to change my image because I had been a comedian for so long, and I still am. Comedy is at my heart. That's what I love doing. Telling stupid stories and making people smile and making people laugh is what I love. But Hamilton was allowed me to show a different side of myself, and let me show the folks the voice of the villain. And all of a sudden, in cartoons, I'm the villain now, which I'm very happy about. And so, did I make the right choice? Oh yeah. Did I think I would ever win a Tony doing a Disney show? No way. Because there's only two actors in the history of the 26-year history of Disney theatrical that have won Tonys, Heather Headley and myself. That is, if you'd have asked me back when I was doing American Musical Theater, Joseph and Technicolor Dreamcoat running around in that leotard, would I be the genie? I would have told you no. Because my wife and I would go to Disneyland almost every weekend and go to see the Aladdin Spectacular, the 45-minute show. And she would always like, do you want to audition for this? I was like, no, because I want to be the genie. I don't think they'll let a black guy be the genie.
Huh.
I was a little short-sighted. And here we go all these years later, and here I am. And so, yeah, I made the right choice. I think we have to accept the fact that your path is your path. You can't, we live in an age where we can see everybody's successes, but nobody ever posts their failures because that's not what people want to see. That's not popular. People want to see you on the beach and you know, jet skiing, and people want to see you eating lunch with all your friends, even though you really should be socially distancing. Everybody sees you, you know, going to the show and going to France and going here and doing that, and oh, look what TV show I'm on, and look what this, and nobody ever shows what it took to get there. They just show they got there. So you as the, you know, person who's seeing these things on Instagram, Snapchat, or Switch, or Facebook, or Twitter, you're only seeing the destination. You're not seeing the journey. You're not seeing the doors that closed. You're not hearing the no's. You're not seeing the moments of people cry at night of wondering, can they do this? Why did I do this? Why did I pick, of all things, theater to do as a profession? Because if you are going to pick theater, I would tell you to pick anything else, not because it's not great, not because it's not fun, just because it's hard. What we do is hard, and we make it look easy when the lights turn on. But you don't know what those artistic directors have to deal with, and wondering what their audience is going to want to see, or wondering what stories are going to work, or wondering what actors you want to work with, or do I really want to work with that actor again? I know people think they're nice, but I know them as the butthole that they truly are. You know what I mean? No people don't say that. But you have to look at the path you're supposed to be on. And that path is your path. Those doors open for you. And when those doors open, that's your blessing. Don't look at everybody else. You can look, you can glance, but turn that mess off and put the blinders on where you're supposed to be going. And it's amazing. It's amazing what wonderful things you'll find when you're just looking at your journey. Or look back at your journey and look at your successes, not your failures. Because your failures probably helped you get to that next success. But we as people, we weigh so much on, oh, I did this wrong. I did this bad. I did this bad. I did this wrong. Look at the cool stuff. Look at your family. Are your kids okay? Are your kids not in jail? Are your kids not sick? Is your husband alive? Did you not kill him? When he left his clothes on the ground, did you not choke him? Is he still smiling? Did he bring you tea? Did he do something? Are you happy? Do you have all your teeth? Do you have all your hair? Do you still fit those cool shoes you bought years ago? Do you still, look at the successes that you have and enjoy those moments, because life is short. I'm 46 and it came quick. Literally, this girl and I have known each other 20 years. Think about that for a second. 26 when I met her. 46 now. Listen, guys, enjoy the life you have. And when those doors open for you, run through them and enjoy what you got. Because this is it. It's all we got. People say, oh, you only live once. You're right. You only live once. So you might as well have fun every day, or at least try to. I'm done.
I love it. I love it. Well, on that note, which is the inspiration that we all needed to hear and drink from. And I feel like every morning I need a burst of this. Just have a little morning wake up call. Awesome. Thank you, James, so much on behalf of and our community. We're so grateful for you to join us tonight. It is, you are such a pleasure, and I am humbled and honored and delighted to be able to call you a friend. So thank you. Super grateful. Friends who are here tonight, thank you guys for joining us. As always, we are so appreciative to be able to connect to our community in this way. And yay, feel free. I will keep the chat open for a little while longer. You can feel free to stay, or I'm probably only gonna leave it up for 5 because I gotta go to bed. And James ahead where you are. So
James, you're an inspiration, man.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Good night. We've got tons. Yay. So thank you guys. Again, what's coming up? Oh, I will give a plug. On Thursday night, we do have a Behind the Curtain with May Matos, Lisa Rosman, and Sharon Pang doing the Unseen Thread. So it's costume design, and that's going to be a phenomenal event. All of the magic that happens with costumes is happening on, or you'll be able to find out about on Thursday, and that'll be going on. So yes, there will be a recording of the show. Will be up on our YouTube, hopefully within the next couple of days. And we will continue to communicate you guys with some of the HGTV that's coming up. And I'm going to get the name of the podcast so that we can share that information with anybody else. And if there's anything that you want to share too, follow James. He's fabulous. He will give you that first.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm going to say good night.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.